Welcome to His Glory, Her Good, a podcast for women in student ministry. We are your hosts. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Corinne.
And happy end of summer. If you're listening to this, I feel like you're practically in the school year at this point.
Yeah.
Some people are literally starting school this week.
Yep.
But congratulations. You made it through the summer.
Made it through.
Student ministry
Had a fun
summer.
time along the way.
Fall is next week. Small group transitions are happening.
I know. I feel like people in ministry
Sunday.
get that it's like summer's crazy, but fall's crazy.
Yes.
And some people prefer the summer craziness or the fall crazy, but there isn't really a difference. It just stays a little bit crazy for the next little bit.
It's so true. There's no rest for the weary.
No.
But since there's no rest for the weary, we figured, why don't we end our season 7 with some laughs for the weary?
I think that's a great plan.
Okay, so we did our first Confessions of a Girls Minister episode this past season, and it was one of our top listened to episodes. People were like, let me hear the hilarious stories.
Let me know I'm not alone.
Yeah, what wild things are happening out there, so I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's so fun, and got to get a lot of really awesome stories.
Okay,
and
good.
honestly, there's even more stories that I've just heard personally.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. 2 years ago, we were doing a girls minister retreat, and they were talking. One girl was talking about how she went to camp with a certain amount of students and came home with one more because one of her students gave birth in a cabin. Okay. And that's when I was like, we are a different breed of human beings. Okay. This is a totally different, who else can say that other than a girls minister?
And you hear that, and I think if you're in the context, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Those are maybe part of for the course.
And I asked them that day, all 20 of them are in a room, and I'm like, raise your hand if how many of you have had a teen girl, share pregnancy at camp or find out that they were pregnant at camp, and everybody's hand went up in the room. This is the stuff that only happens.
Not to take away from your experience, but this is really actually part of
this is just the wild thing that they don't teach you in seminary.
They sure do not.
So anyway, we thought it would be fun to kind of share our own camp stories, but also to share the stories that you've submitted. And so, Corinne, do you have a wild, funny story?
I actually want to share from when I was a student, because I think it's actually by the grace of God. I was thinking about this. I'm just going to give a shout out to my friend Allie, because I never got her back to camp. It's understandable. So I skipped camp my going into 6th grade year. It wasn't really on purpose. I think my family just didn't fully understand the student ministry calendar, so it didn't work out. Yeah. But I did not successfully spend the night at many people's houses. I didn't make it. I usually made it to about 11 o'clock. And so camp was a big deal. So we brought my friend. I don't know what we were thinking, though, to bring the other friend that never made it through a sleepover either. But we did it. And we could not have had a more challenging camp group of just scary girls. And so let's just be honest, at camp didn't go great. We were a few nights in, you're really tired. You're having fun, but then also I had just gotten contacts for the first time. I think I tore a hole in them, so I couldn't see the whole week. So that was just already
middle school
camp's hard. You're emotional, you're tired, but I'm trying to put on a brave face because I brought my friend, she's a guest. And about halfway through, she was just crying in the middle of the night. Lights were out, and she was like, can you just help me fall off this bunk so I'll break my arm and get to go home?
Oh, no.
And we just cried. And I wish that the story stopped there, but we made it through the week. And then our camp had an entire outbreak of swine flu. You should look it up. It's really contagious and really terrible, to the point that at home, doctors' offices had a line of if you went to Long Hollow, go to this. I don't know if I should have said my church, but if you went to this camp, go to this waiting room. And if you were someone else, go to this waiting room. And they lost her luggage for more than a week. So, we hit every box of she got so sick with swine flu. She had to stay at camp the whole week because her mom refused to come pick her up. And we didn't have cell phones at the time to let our moms know, we're some of the cool group. And she didn't have luggage by the end. So that was Allie's one and only time. But I kept going, and I can confidently say camp kept getting better. But I think as a student, I had enough crazy experiences that maybe helped prepare me for a career in summer camp.
Oh my goodness. Well, I did have a career in summer camp for 3 summers into college. Loved every moment of it. Shout out to Centric at camps. But I actually was shocker to a lot of people. I was the rec director.
I love that about you.
My classes, which is hilarious because there's no athletic bone in my body, but I like to have a good time.
God works in mysterious ways.
He really does. So all that to say is was the rec director, got to set up fun games, filled lots of water balloons. But somehow rec director equals first aid responder. And so I didn't go through like CPR and first aid training ahead of time, which like really just certifies me to like give somebody an ice pack, you know, or help with a nosebleed, or here's a Band-Aid. Band-Aids fix a lot of things when it comes to children's camp. Ice packs do too. But I will never forget that summer, first summer being a rec director, the amount of medical emergencies or just like medical like wild things that happened that summer was insane. I'd also just have random leaders be like, hey, can you check this student's ear to see if she's got an ear infection? And I'm like, I'm not a doctor. like you want a Band-Aid? Anyway, all that to say is I remember coming up the hill. We were at Eagle Eyrie in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is a really fun place, but there's a lot of hills. And come up the mountain out of breath with my like giant first aid bag that I like lost everywhere. And they were like, are you the first aid person? And I'm like thinking, I'm about to be a hero here. Where's the ice pack and the Band-Aid needed? One of the kids stepped on a ground bee hole and a whole hive of bees came up, stung the kid like 29 times. But it makes matters worse, he ran into the cafeteria with the hive of bees. So not only was it like mass hysteria, like there are bee stings everywhere. This one kid's like going into anaphylactic shock, and they're like, what can you do? And I'm like, literally nothing. I could call 911. That is all I could offer.
Same thing you can
and
do.
It was insane. And I wish I could say that that's where the story ended, but I literally left the cafeteria of crazy and like still spiraling. I go up to the next mountain of this retreat center, about to try to like rally for worship, and this child who decided to like run up like the actual mountain fell down and dislocated their kneecap. And I had to hold the kneecap in place until the ambulance like arrived. It was the most wild week of medical stuff. So I will say, don't call me for any of your medical emergencies. Okay. We really changed a lot, I would say, at Centric about first aid and how to handle it.
You helped make the change. So
they were like, you know what? Amanda is a great lesson of we cannot rely on 20-year-olds to be our medical professionals. Yeah. But anyway, all that to say is at camp, I had a lot of crazy stories that happened from being a staffer, from being a student, being an adult. And so there's always so many fun. You never know what's going to happen at camp.
No.
And so we want to share some stories. I'm excited. You guys sent in some stories. And so figured we're going to share them. Corinne's never read these before. So this is great because I get to essentially be the storyteller here and we get the live response. So no pressure, Corinne.
No pressure.
This one is amazing. First of all, we were just talking about injuries, and I think this is so real. But this one minister said, less than 20 minutes after I arrived to camp, I had been notified that one of our girls slipped and now couldn't put weight on her foot. 2 urgent cares, and 4 hours later, we found that she had a bad break to her fibula. So like nothing like an injury to kick off camp. That is so real. We had one of our Lifeway girls trainers literally was doing check-in and a car crashes into their church sign, like at the front of the church. Yeah. Like literally, that's how you know Satan's already at work. When someone's getting injured and our cars are crashing into your church.
Oh my gosh.
Just as camp is kicking off.
Okay. And speaking of bone breaks, just one bonus one from this summer, literally, sweet Emily, if you're listening, she's doing the Cupid Shuffle at Camo night. It was our late night for high school. And I mean, she had worked so hard and it was like, it turned out to be like this amazing night. And we weren't even 10 minutes into the night and she did Cupid Shuffle barefoot and broke her foot.
No way.
And she went down. I mean, down. The Cupid Shuffle. And I mean, the poor girl came back with a boot, which she was convinced she was coming back that same night. But she thankfully did one night at home and then came back for camp.
Oh, my word.
Better than ever. But
Cupid Shuffle never.
It's a dangerous one. You would think it's the simple dances, but be careful.
Okay. This is another great story. I once thought that a girl who brought bay leaves was planning to smoke them.
Oh, no.
So we confiscated them and asked why she chose to bring bay leaves. She responded, "It's a joke. My boyfriend broke up with me." Bay leaves. It was a joke, when the bay leaves. Our student ministry staff somehow thought it was contraband, but now we just say, leave your spices at home.
Oh,
hilarious.
It's like the caution hot on a drink that you're like, this came from somewhere. Now we have to have this rule in place.
Yeah. And speaking of bringing things you're not supposed to, this next story. Honestly, I can't believe this has never happened to me, but this is amazing. 1 year on a summer mission journey, we took an 8-hour trip to Chicago. As we were unloading, our ministry assistant pulled me aside and she said she thought she saw a girl with a live animal in a small cage.
No.
It wasn't indeed an animal.
No.
An animal. Have you ever had someone bring an animal to camp?
I'm trying to think. No, I think we've only gotten as far as asking.
No. We figure she bought it at the pet store during the food court stop, but in fact, it came with her on the bus, a mouse named Brownie.
No.
So Brownie had to go. He said, release it in the streets. Sorry. The girl lost it and said it was her therapy mouse. I began singing softly the theme song to an American Tale called Somewhere Out There. It's about a mouse lost in the big city trying to get back home. Our student team now had to figure out how to handle the situation with the hostel we were staying at. They were completely thrown off. They said the mouse could stay caged that night, but we needed to ask our partner church if someone would house the mouse for the week. They had to find a foster home for the mouse.
But she got to keep the mouse.
I called so many people asking if they could house a pet. They were in until I said mouse. Thankfully, we were able to hide the mouse in a leader room during the week. But since that day, we still say no animals, living or dead, are allowed on this trip. We threw in dead just to cover our bases in the future because Brownie did survive. That was an epic story.
Oh my gosh.
Brownie.
I don't like mice.
I feel like we need to get a t-shirt with Brownie's
But I'm glad Brownie's okay.
Way to go, Brownie.
I'm kind of team Brownie.
Honestly, let's be real. The fact that not more live animals show up to camp with teen girls.
Now, I will say a couple years ago, we had trouble convincing a girl that she could not bring the captured frog home from camp.
Return.
Yeah, she found it and was really excited about it. Yep, brought it to me to pet.
I brought a souvenir and I didn't have to use my money for it.
We had to just explain that this frog is really happy at camp, and how sad would it be to take him.
You're taking away him from his family. Yeah. That's amazing. All right, here's another story. Okay. We are on our way home from camp right now. We had a full fridge and freezer in our church group room, and we had some leftover pizza and popsicle stored in there. This is already going in a totally different direction.
Oh, boy.
One of our leaders went up to the room one night, and there were 2 girls from another church getting into the fridge. She confronted them and asked if they opened the bag of popsicles and got our pizza. They said, "Oh, I don't know." And she said, "You literally have the pizza and popsicles in your hand, okay?" And she asked them to not come back and get in our stuff. Fast forward 1 hour later. I went up there, and there's an entire group of girls in there with their leader, and they are getting in some major trouble. It was so awkward. I just casually walked out, got a bomb pop, and tried to pretend I wasn't there. Turns out, which is hilarious, turns out one of their girls had brought some special gummies, and the leader found them. So these girls were eating the pizza and the popsicles of the leaders because they were high and had the munchies.
No.
That is wild. That's like immediate,
that's real
you're
bad.
You're going home.
Real bad.
Which is so unfortunate. They told on themselves because they couldn't stay out of the leader room.
Oh my god.
Do y'all have a special leader room at camps? Yeah.
It gets locked.
Yeah, I
probably
bet.
that reason.
100%.
Or maybe not.
Hopefully not.
It's also protecting us from that.
No, especially not from teenagers, having the munchies. But that's so good. There are so many crazy stories like that we feel like, are we wasting our time here? These girls, they show up and they seem so excited, especially those first 2 nights of camp. I just feel like it's just, they're testing boundaries in a lot of ways of what can we get away with that we don't get away with at home? And it can feel like we are completely wasting our time or we're just babysitting. But I think we can all agree that we do believe that camp has impact and that it has, fruit that will last for an eternity that we may or may not ever get to see. And so I would love to talk to you a little bit, Corinne, of just like how, I don't think you ever brought munchies or ever got the munchies at camp from gummies, or brought your pet mouse.
Also didn't.
But I do believe that has camp impacted you.
Yeah. I think it's been several seasons since we even talked about this, but camp, I was a believer before I was a student age, but middle school camp is where I first responded to a call to ministry. Camp has been a place where I've actually gotten to watch friends give their lives to Jesus and seeing like real miracles take place. I think maybe student age camp was some of the moments that I saw God do the impossible, maybe in ways that just for the first time in my own faith, it was happening right before my eyes, or something that I had been praying for that had nothing to do with my prayers, but just I got to be part of because I got to see God at work. And we're actually just talking about this because I think sometimes camp gets a bad name of like, we talk so often about how like camp's not real life. Like it's not like it's this escape from the normal. Yeah. It's an escape from the everyday, but it's not real. And I just had this conviction this past summer when we were doing our night of worship of just speaking with the students to go, but what if actually camp might be some of the most real encounters we have, because it is some of the few times in our life where we are completely undistracted by the other things, and that we get a glimpse of what it would be like to just want Jesus and nothing else. Yep. And so I think there's just something about camp that, yes, it is not our everyday life, but I think there is something about camp that when we catch these glimpses of it really is nothing but Jesus. Like I want nothing but him, that then starts to lay a foundation for how do we go home and walk daily with him. That my heart, I just love camp, and I believe in the power of it. And I believe that it can be in those monumental moments that then do maybe spark a fire. And yes, that fire has to be like tended to, and there is the daily discipleship and the daily following, and it won't always feel as exciting. But I think sometimes those camp moments are gifts to be like, God is real, and he is more powerful than we sometimes give him credit for, and he is moving in ways that we sometimes forget to notice. And I think that's just where I'm like, will forever be such a fan of camp, and will keep going to camp as long as I'm invited. But I love camp. And as a student and as an adult, there are just moments that God has met with me so personally in ways that have not been the whole basis of my faith, but have absolutely been like huge markers that then have changed the trajectory of how I walk with Jesus when I get home.
That's so good. I would say like the most impactful camp moment I can remember was in 9th grade, when I really had to publicly own my faith for the first time. So grew up in church, and camp was just what you did, and it was so fun. But the fall before camp, so this was summer of 2006, I believe, and or fall 2006, and I gave my life to Jesus for the first like genuine time in my bedroom by myself, and didn't tell a soul because I had gotten baptized when I was 7 or 8, and I was a good kid. So like on the outside, like no one would know any difference. And it was that summer, and I barely remember anything about the camp or where we went. But I remember that like the Lord asked me, we want to put baptism on the right side of our salvation. And I remember talking to my mom, because she was like, no, like you've already given your life to Jesus. You've already been baptized. And like, that was like the first time that I had to like push back and say like, this is for me and between me and God, and not like anybody else, which is crazy to think. Cause now I think about 14-year-olds making any decision, and I'm like, we sure about that? Like, I understand why my mom was like pushing me, but that will forever now like be a marker, like a spiritual marker in my life that, like I think about baptism in a lot of different ways, and but it really is that like ownership of saying, I'm going to like publicly, profess my faith, not my face. But also like that moment too, where I get to look back on all, whenever I feel shaken or feel like, is God there? Is he real? Yeah. Did I really give my life to Christ? I get to think about that moment. And all those summers after of doing camp and as a staff leader or as somebody who is, working camp or as a teenager, like every summer after, it felt like that was just another reminder of who God was in my life, that with all the noise and distractions of the year, you step back into this little tiny world that is beautiful and so much fun. And all of a sudden the noise gets quiet. Yeah. And God is able to get really loud in our lives. And so I think sometimes these stories are such a good reminder that there is a lot of noise at camp, whether it's injuries or pet mice showing up to camp, that like Satan wants nothing to do more than to distract us at camp, because it takes away that moment of getting still and quiet before the Lord and saying, like, I have to acknowledge who he is in my life. I have to acknowledge his work in my life. And so I'm with you. I'm a big camp fan over here. And I'm just grateful for just kind of the way that God has used camp to kind of shape my life. And how would you encourage leaders right now who came off a really great week of camp or maybe not so great week of camp and are kind of just like wrestling with like, maybe they don't see the fruit of that week, that it was really hard. It was really awesome there, but now it feels like we're just back to normal. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about like the day that we're all going to meet Jesus. And I think there are some times that we so badly want the applause from other people or to feel like camp was successful by the metrics that our churches can present numbers or give facts and celebrate. But I just keep thinking about like, do I want my applause now or do I want my applause with Jesus? And I just can't imagine, like, we don't get it perfectly right, but I think to the people that are feeling like, oh my gosh, I just like survived one of the worst camps, or like we just made it, like I truly survived, like there was no thriving involved. But I think about the moments that I just wonder if there are things that we're not even realizing that just bring honor and glory to the Lord in the way that we calmly handle misbehavior, or in the way that we show forgiveness, or in the way that we call a mom and talk with her and pray with her, and not just, hey, this is how awful your kid has been at camp. The way that we listen, the way that we take care of Brownie the mouse. Like, I know in probably some of it, it would have been easy to like let him free and like run free into the wild. But that girl needed her pet mouse. And so I just think that there are so many ways that we don't even realize we can bring honor and glory to the Lord by how we show up and by how we choose to keep trusting him, that makes any experience of camp like worth it, makes any camp fruitful, even if other people don't recognize it. But I remember journaling actually at this camp that it doesn't have to be marveled at by the masses for it to be miraculous. And so the miraculous works of God, by just the fact that we have breath in our lungs and that we have fresh mercy for him to keep pursuing hearts while there's still time left, even if no one else sees that, doesn't make it any less real.
That's so good. Well, friends, thanks for entertaining us with your stories. I mean, there was even more stories that we just didn't have time to get to. But it is, let this be a reminder, what you do matters. Yeah. The week of camp, whether the best week of the year or the worst week of the year, the fruit of that, even if you don't get to see it now, the Lord sees your faithfulness, and that's what matters the most. So, hey, you're heading to fall, and we are praying you out and believing that God is going to continue the work that he has already begun in your students. And we're excited for you and here for you. Listen, if you are looking for camp, listen, Lifeway does a lot of really good camps, and want to encourage you to get involved, get plugged into what we already offer. Like, don't put all the stress on planning a camp on your own, okay? If you don't have to do that, don't do it. Let our teams do it for you. I'll link it both below, but Fuge Camp, Student Life Camps are both amazing camps for students that I would highly encourage you to check out. And here, if you have questions, listen, I'm going to always cheer on camps. So we want to help you find the right camp for your church and your ministry. So until next time, see you in season 8.
Woohoo!
His Glory, Her Good is a production of the Lifeway Podcast Network.
We're your hosts, Corinne Allen
and Amanda Mejias.
We are so grateful that you joined us, and we'll see you next time.